stream's going to start. It is now officially the pre-stream, though. Hello to Maxwell Perlman. Have I heard of or experimented with the game engine Construct 2? No. I don't know what that is. What is my take on the fidget spinners and cubes and whatnot the kids love so much? I'm not even paying attention to any of that stuff. It doesn't interest me. I'm reading programming language email while I wait a few more minutes for people to show up. When should you cue your audio? Right before, right after, or wait for VSync, or neither? I mean, I do it in a separate thread, so it has nothing to do with VSync. You kind of want to do that anyway in case you're on PC or somewhere where you might have a long frame because something stalls your program or they're running on really slow hardware. Otherwise, I mean, the thing is you have to have enough audio queued up that it doesn't matter anyway. Like if, I can't imagine, I actually don't remember how much audio the witness queues up, but it's several 60-second frames worth. It's probably at least 70 milliseconds at all times. I don't know for sure. So, you know, obviously if you queue up too much audio, you get too much latency, blah, blah, blah. But you're helped by the fact that there's latency involved in getting the graphics to the screen, so that's okay. I mean, in general, because the audio pipeline has latency built in, my answer to that is queue it up as soon as you can. You know, what I do is every frame, I have some, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Maybe someone will have a contrarian opinion to mine, but yeah. Now, for something like input, that matters, right? Input, you should always do before simulate. In simulate, you should always do between input and render, right? So that stuff matters. Stuff that definitely happens every frame and is a data dependency in your computation needs to go in the right order. But audio tends to be kind of asynchronous. It doesn't matter. Did I ever give a talk about G-Sync? No. The problem with G-Sync is nobody can answer the question of how long to simulate your frame for. So as far as I'm concerned, it's actually not as good of a technology as it should be, because you have to know how long to simulate the frame for in order to draw the right thing on the screen. And when you say the frame can take any amount of time, which is what G-Sync does, then you're going to simulate the wrong amount of time, always. It is, as they say on the left, social justice circles, problematic. Yeah, that GDC thing, like I haven't given a talk at GDC since that braid thing, and it's partly because I'm so pissed off at the way they treated me that time. But whatever. Whatever. There's a lot of other good reasons too. So audio latency latency in a game like The Witness does matter less than a program like Rocksmith, but even in a program like Rocksmith, there's unavoidable audio latency. Like there's a certain amount of control that you don't have over how long it takes samples to get to the hardware, especially on the PC. On something like a game console, you actually kind of know how long it takes, and you can cut it really close. On a PC, you can't cut it that close because you don't really know. So what stuff like Rocksmith or Rock Band and all that kind of stuff do is, at least Rock Band actually has algorithms to estimate how much latency there is, latency differential between the audio and the video, because they can't tell them how much video latency there is either. And they use that in order to then adjust the scoring. So there's some kind of, filter. And there's a calibration mode in those games there tends to be, right? Where you basically play a very simple beat and it uses that to figure out the latency. I wish we didn't have to do that, but that's the state of hardware and software right now. I might do GDC next year because I might want to give a programming language talk there. That's really the only reason. What should you do if the monitor frequency is 75 hertz and you want your game loop to run at 60 hertz? Nothing, you're screwed. Do we get repeated script frames and that's life? Do people actually interpolate graphics outputs and stuff? I mean, what you have to do on the PC, the only real thing, well, there's two things you can do. One is you don't take VSync and you render at 75 hertz and you tear on every frame, which is going to look bad. Or you run at 75 hertz. Those are the two choices. Is really all you can do. Oh, Rock Band 3 Plus guitars actually have light and sound sensors for automatic calibration of video and audio. I guess that makes sense, right? Because the controllers on consoles, at least, have mics on them, right? So if the guitar is basically a controller, you can put a mic on the guitar and then calibrate. That's good. Yeah. All right. I'm going to get a snack, and then we will start. All right, thanks everybody for showing up. Today I'm going to start programming some stuff about high-level animation control. So I can show the state of game so far. People have probably seen this if they've been following the streams. And I have a dude, you know, he walks around and animations sort of interpolate. And we're at the stage of development where we want to sort of go from the placeholder animations that we have in right now and the lack of transitions and all this stuff that you see. You know, when I start walking, or when I stop walking and his legs sort of settle into place randomly, you know, that's like an automatic interpolation that the game's doing because there isn't, you know, a transition between those two animations and stuff. So we want to start going from this kind of placeholder thing to higher quality animations. And you know, generally what you'd want to do in that case is give the people who make the content the power to do most of the work, right? If they have to talk to me all the time in order to get anything done, and I have to type in more code, then I'm a bottleneck on everything. And I'm a bottleneck on too many things already. So the goal is to make some kind of animation system that an animator can use to get new things into the game without having to ask me about stuff. Now, there's basically a very simple state machine hard-coded into the game right now to do stuff like, oh, if you're walking, play an idle animation, or if you're idling, play an idle animation, if you're walking, play a walking animation, and if you push. And there's a little more because there's multiple characters in this game. So there's like an active and an inactive idle based on which character you're controlling and all that stuff. But it's pretty simple given all that number of states. So I talked to the animator on this project today, and we talked about like, hey, what should I do in order to enable the animations to go in? And he basically described what he thought would be useful. And it's basically a relatively I would say classical at this point state machine for animation control, but that's fully creatable and editable through, in the initial version, text files, and then maybe later we'll do like a graphical editor where you can define animation states and nodes between them, but we may not do that for this game, because when you're building up the engine, you know, you want to put a certain amount of effort in the engine and then maybe start getting the game done, you know what I mean? So, what I did earlier today, off stream at a coffee shop was I made some changes to the way that the animation system animates the dude, so that it's a little more generalized, and what those are doesn't really matter too much. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start making it generalized. So step by step, and there's no way I'm going to finish this tonight, because it'll be at most 2 hours before I get tired, probably less. I'm going to start moving the hard-coded animation system out into an unhard-coded system while keeping all the functionality intact, right? So at every step, I still should be able to run my guy around in this world and have him work. Yeah, and let me go show. So here's one with 2 guys, right? And I can switch between them and so on. So that's just showing a couple more of the states. So that's the goal. And what I did earlier today was, so one of the first things that the animator said is like, well, we want to be able to define all these different states in the state machine, and you want to be able to play animations, but you want to be able to have a level of indirection between the name used in the state machine and the actual file names of the animation. So I said, oh, all right, and we're going to have one file for each of those things. So one of the characters is the warrior. So I just made this file called the animation names file, which the engine doesn't read yet. And it just maps from on the left, some name that, these probably aren't the names that the actual animator is going to use, but they're what I'm going to use to kick off the system. And it's just a mapping from the thing on the left to the thing on the right, which is the actual asset name of each particular animation. And the warrior doesn't pull things, so the asset is we've just got a single dash there, right? So the first thing I'm going to do tonight is be able to load this file and into a asset catalog, so it'll be hot loadable and integrated into the engine and all this good stuff. And I'll test that, and then I will hopefully be able to use this file instead of the hard-coded animation names in the game. And that should be a reasonable amount of stuff to do tonight, although you never know, because it's an experimental programming language, and I even, in some of the changes I did for the next compiler demo, I actually messed up error messages a little bit. So there are spurious error messages happening, which I didn't want to fix yet because I wanted to get into this task and make progress on it. So, this is going to be entertaining. Are there any questions about what I said and what the goal is here? Someone says, can you move diagonally in this game? No, you cannot. What? Why does Avner have this thing where he deletes everyone's messages? I don't understand that. What is that file on my screen? That's the animation names file that I just said. Okay. Now one other thing that I already did is I started making this file these catalogs are they're the standard data structure in this engine where you have some asset and you can look up the asset by name and it can also get hot loaded, right? So it's a polymorphic thing. And then for each of these data structures, you define a couple of routines like how to make a new one of your assets and how to reload it if it changes on disk, right? So I've already done a little bit of this, like I copied this from someone else, and yeah, we do call read entire file on the file, and then there's some text file routines that I'm gonna, copy over from somewhere else probably to start processing this. It should be pretty straightforward. This is catalogs a whole polymorphic struct, and I demoed how that works in some previous demos. So my data structure is that I'm going to load this file into is just this animation names thing, and this is just some data used by all these all the asset types that catalogs work with, right? So the asset type here is an animation names. And the main component is it's just got a hash table that maps string to string, right? So this string on the left is, the tag name, and the string on the right is the asset name of the actual file name of the animation file. Does read entire file return a void pointer? How do you know its length? No, data is a string. So a string has a pointer to U8, right? A pointer to bytes, and a length, a signed 64-bit length. So I know the length because data tells me the length. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So, what I'm going to do right now is in main, I just want to test this. So after I init this catalog, so catalogs are all initialized like by this point. I actually, I don't want to think about, I don't know if I can do this yet. There might be a compiler thing preventing me from doing this, but I'm going to try it. Can I just do this? Catalog, loose files, data, ... all. Something tells me that won't work. Because there's just a little bit of, I haven't covered all the corner cases about like polymorphism and base classes and stuff. Oh my God. It worked. Oh, the language is getting good. All right, so as long as I register anything in all catalogs, catalog loose files basically goes over every file in data and tells every catalog about that file, right? And so from here, here's what I can do. I'm going to say names is find animation names, I can't type, names catalog, comma warrior, right? That should, and then I'm just gonna, what function is this? This is just, if dumb hack return, and then I'm going to say if dumb hack return. Right, that was main. All right, so I'm going to say dumb hack is true because I just want to get this catalog working, and I don't want to have to even initialize my game all the time or load all the data and stuff that it takes to get things on the screen. So if I just run it, all right. Well, it gave me an asset back. Let's actually, I mean, the asset's not going to be anything because it's just a blank one. So here we go. So it's an animation names. The name is warrior. That's the path to the file. This client thinks it's loaded, but the hash table is empty, right? So there's nothing, there's count in hash table is 0 and blah, 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 right? So that's great, though. It means, well, doesn't necessarily mean too much. Let's go into here, and we'll say print we're just going to do a bunch of prints. Oh, that didn't happen. Why not? Well, it didn't save the file. That's what. Emacs. What is going on with you, Emacs? All right, there we go. That's that. It's like I have enough problems programming correctly, like, without this kind of thing. Emacs has been doing a lot of weird stuff lately. Like, I think it's just getting buggier and buggier over time. Okay. The double less than is not the tremendous part, because that's just dereferencing the pointer. The tremendous part is the print function. Right. Yeah, the tremendous part is just, right, if this returned by value instead of a pointer, then this would just work without that. For coder, yeah, maybe one day. But yeah, it is pretty awesome just to be able to say print the thing and it gives you all the data, right? I mean, at some point it gets a little bit annoying because you want a better print routine than all this stuff, but you can register print routines and stuff. So, or you can just make your own custom print function, right? Okay. Okay, I say. Well, let's just start doing some text file stuff. What is some other text files that I load? Well, the variables stuff. Here we go. Consume next line, right. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to start copying the pattern that I do here. I want to say loading, right. I'm going to say while true, at some point, I might put more of this into more of an abstraction, but it almost doesn't seem worth it. We'll see. I mean, like wrapping the line number and something up into this. I don't know. I mean, you could register like a, oh, I know the right thing to do. Not the next demo, but the next major feature after the next demo would be a good application of this. Good real world application. I'm getting ideas, but let's not rat hole there. Right now, we're just going to kind of copy and paste this, right? So we're eating the spaces at the beginning of the line. If it was all spaces, we continue. And then it could be a comment. Or it could be actual data. And if it's actual data, I'm going to say print line with actual data line. Right? And then that should, we're still not doing anything with the actual data, but it should print the lines out. Okay. So this is one of these spurious error messages that I was talking about. This hasn't, every time we get error messages, we're going to see some bucket array stuff. Just ignore that for now. So the real error messages are the non-bucket array stuff. Undeclared identifier file data, because I didn't call it file data. I called it data. Let's call it file data to be less ambiguous. File data. All right. Boom. Hey, look, line with actual data, blah, 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 blah. That is awesome. Okay. So okay, this one, this is not as advanced as some of my other code. So I want to say I have something like until space. Let's try the user IDs file. Yeah, okay. So here I'm going to say tag is going to be line. I'm going to say RHS is eat until space line. RHS equals eat spaces RHS. So basically, we're expecting each line to have like some word that doesn't have spaces. So we go until the space, we eat all the spaces, and then we cut all the trailing spaces. This is, again, I mean, maybe I should make an abstracted function called parse word or whatever, but anyway. Yes. And then, so the tag started out pointing at, oh, there's a bug in this. Interesting. Yeah, I definitely should factor this into something, but, you know, it's always good to do it a few times. It gives me motivation to work on that next feature. What if the asset name has spaces? Well, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Oh, what if the asset name, the file name has spaces? You know, right now I'm just saying it doesn't, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing where if we want to handle file names with spaces or whatever, it's going to be a slight modification to this format later, but that kind of thing, that's not heavy lifting, right? It's just like a small modification. Like we could, instead of, you know, eating until space or whatever, we could say, well, if it's a quote, call a parse quoted string and go to the end. Otherwise, don't, right? But that kind of thing is a relatively minor embellishment, right? What I'm trying to get into place is the architecture of the whole system, right? And then small things like this can be improved in a relatively easy way. All right, so does eat until space, I kind of feel like that should be this probably should, yeah, all right. Tag.count. Wait, it wasn't there. We were looking on the user IDs. Yeah. I believe count. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll just stop and fix this. It's maybe not worth it to do a... Okay, well, we still have all these line with actual datas because I didn't do anything. So I'm going to say print tag is, in single quotes, the tag, and asset name, in single quotes, is the asset name. So tag RHS. Okay, so that worked. All right, so we got walking, warrior, active, deployment, active, blah, 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 blah. Great. All right. Let me go back, because this is making me nervous whenever I see a bug like that. I mean, like I said, I'll fix it when we factor this stuff into a more general thing, but let's turn off the dumb hack. And put that there. Whoops. Oh, wait. Now I'm confused. Oh, you know what? I was just confused about what I was looking at. Right. Okay, the IDs are the right. They're not the left. Or wait, no, they are the left. Okay, I'm pretty sure that should go like that. Let's see when we launch the editor. User ID 5, that's correct. Okay, so it parsed the IDs file correctly. So that's right. So let's get rid of this. Whoops. I said -m. Well, I checked in all this other stuff too. That's fine. I didn't mean to check in the other stuff. Turn the dumb hack back on. All right. Does consume next line mutate the string? If so, how does that affect the free file data call? Okay. Let's go and look at exactly what you're asking about. So no, we don't. Well, let's take a look at that. It's a good point. It does modify the string, so actually this is wrong. You're asking for trouble there. Right. The whole point of this is that it bumps the file data forward to the next line and returns the current line, right? And I've made that mistake before. It's actually a mistake that I've made several times, so thank you for calling it out. But it also indicates that maybe this shouldn't be the API when this stuff isn't in the standard library right now, right? It's like here, right? So maybe it should be a functional thing where we say line found in next line or something, right? I'll need to think about this. Or maybe it'll just be encapsulated in a struct, and the struct will have its own copy of the file data string that it modifies, but if you had freed it, you would have freed your own copy that never changes. We'll see. This will be a good, when I do that next demo feature, this is going to be a very good application, I think. Very good application. Avoiding the keyword switch is not about complexity, it's about using fewer reserved words, because it's annoying when you want to use a word in your code and it's reserved by the language. So I try to limit, it's good hygiene as a language designer to either limit the number of reserved words that you use or to make them be things that people are unlikely to type. Okay. So I can call table add on the table. Table add. Well, yeah. So I'm not going to print the whole line anymore. I'm going to keep this print for now, and I'll say table add table and oh, not table, names.table. And the key and the value. So tag is the key and RHS is the value. I'm going to call it, oh, I'll call it RHS, whatever. Okay. Pointer versus non-pointer. Oh, because the table is by value. All right. So we now have a hash table. It's got 8 items in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. Okay, so now we're going to test back here. Dumb hack. Okay. Look up names s tag string asset names table dot find. Well, what's the API to the hash table? Table find. I keep thinking I'm in C++. Table find names dot table tag that's not going to work. Oh man. So I've never used this data structure to return a string. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to have to hack this up a little bit because we're trying to return null if the table is not allocated, and null is not a string. So it's going to error. But this is why I use the programming language for myself before I try to foist it on you guys. So we're going to try to find it, and we're going to say print tag maps to asset tag asset. Yeah, and so now we're going to say look up names, pushing, what's some stuff in that file? Yeah, pushing, walking, dead, inactive to active. All right, let's make sure that works. It's not going to compile, I think. Yeah, see, that's what I said. I wanted a string and given null. Fortunately, there's enough features in the language that I can fix this, but it's a little bit ugly, right? What I would like to have, what file is that? Table. What I would like to say is like return the 0 value of whatever the type is, which is not necessarily null, right? If it's a float, return 0.0, etc. I'm open to suggestions on how to do that. C++ tried to do it by using the literal 0, and I think that's garbage. Maybe null should mean the 0 value of everything, or maybe there should be like 0 of v, right? Something like that. I'm open to suggestions on what this should be. But for now, I'll fix it the following way. Okay, so here's where you're going to say, this is a stupid hack. We're going to say if, static if, v is string, actually, if v is string, null value is going to be empty string, else null value is going to be null, right? And I think this will work. And then I think there we go. This is what happens when you do enough features beforehand. Pushing maps to asset, warrior push, move forward 01, walking maps to asset, move forward, dead maps, and inactive to, it all works. So I'm gonna turn off the dump hack and check in for a second. People are saying things in chat, so I'm going to check that. 0 index. Wouldn't 0 of t just be a default initialized version of t? I don't know. I feel like you want to be able to say either the thing as it would evaluate to false, or the thing is default initialized. I think you want those two things in different cases. Although, right, if that is the right thing to return from the hash table, okay, you know, let's maybe I shall read other people's comments in a second, but so if we say it also returns a success code, right? Then I can say null value is some value of type v, and this is going to default initialize this, right? That's fine. So I can get rid of all this. Now, this has the disadvantage that we're default initializing something although, you know what? Let's do this, because we only need this in 2 cases. So and then return, because, you know, if this is any type, you want to tell people if you found it or not. Otherwise, if it's just some struct by value, they'll have no way of knowing you know. So let's see what happens there. All right. All right. Seems to work pretty good. Let's see what other people said in chat. In C++, you can do return braces. Maybe that works now. It didn't used to. I might also have Naysayer on Twitch, and I just forgot the password ages ago. I don't know. No, dash 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 means uninitialized. That's a very different thing. But yeah, something else made out of uninitialized may work, yes. Or something else made out of punctuation. I'm not sure I like the empty parentheses for unit. We'll see. I don't love that. What's the downside of having null be the 0 for everything? I'm not sure if there is a downside. It's just that I'm not used to it. You do sort of lose a little bit of type checking. Like if you know, if I assign something to null, right now, if null only, works for pointers, then if it's not a pointer, I get an error, and I might want that in some cases, right? I'm not sure if I want that for sure, but maybe. I'm not going to really answer that rendering question because it's off topic, but the answer is I don't think that hard about it. The graphics in this isn't that serious yet. Why initialize at all in the failure case? V's constructor might be arbitrarily complex. Well, yeah, we could return an uninitialized value. It's true. That's probably, the thing is, I need to audit for who calls table find right now. Font, all right. Is that where you put the must? Yeah. All right. So if I return an uninitialized value, then people need to pay attention to the success code, and I'll just fix everyone who complains about this. All right. So, all right. So we're returning an uninitialized value, which shouldn't in principle cost anything. Okay, well, I guess I can delete these. Now, main 679, there's going to be a bunch of files. Okay, catalog line 48. So now you see, if people didn't understand what the hell must was for, this is exactly what it's for. It's exactly what it's for. It's like, okay, we wrote some code and I wanted to use things a certain way, and we're changing the way it's used such that you need to pay attention to the second parameter. Well, now you have to. All right. do this just because we know all catalogs return pointers. Wait, what? What are you talking about, Willis? I'm saying found. What do you mean? This could be a bug. This could derail my functionality. I'm saying value found. What? Oh boy. This is entertaining. I'm just going to keep hitting this until it works. In C# you can do default of some type. That could work. Does the compiler care where in the function scope a variable is declared as long as it is not nested? I'm not sure I understand the question. I don't know why you're asking about whether it's initialized or not. I mean, I explicitly made that value uninitialized. That's what the triple dash does. So it's not initialized. This is a bug that I'm going to fix. This derails the game engine functionality, but it's fine because we got our hash table. Oh, so I started up Visual Studio and like it's just not working. Like Solution Explorer was empty and now it's just sitting here hanging. Thanks Microsoft for this program that I paid thousands of dollars for. Let's try it again. I installed Visual Studio 2013 recently, so maybe they're arguing with each other. Look how long this takes to start up. Ah, at least I get a Solution Explorer now. All right. So, debugging. Sokovan. And we're going to break in the error message for being ignored and figure out why it's saying such a thing. Oh, I've got other breakpoints. Which one is the one I just put in? Like, at least sort them by when I put them in or something. Maybe there is a way to do that. Just all this is such garbage. Like, what? All right. Okay, so return value is being ignored. It says one return value received, which I disagree with. The file's definitely saved. It's value comma found. All right. Where does that get set? That's a copy. This is, oh God. All right, guys, this is going to be brutal. Oh God, I don't want to fix this tonight. All right, let me talk about when programming languages get complicated and what happens. Oh God. So the reason this is happening is because this is inside a polymorphic function. And polymorphic functions, this is why I'm using the programming language heavily before I try to foist it on people. Polymorphic functions, as I talked about with Ginger Bill in that one stream a while ago, get copied. And, in order to, so that we can fill out the types differently on the trees of different instantiations of the function. Now, there is a weirdness in the way that I decode multi-identifier assignments, basically, right? So anything where you say colon equals is a declaration, and you say value colon equals, thing, right? When there's a compound declaration like this, or whatever you want to call it, what I do is I sort of desugar that in the parser, which for other reasons I don't like too, because it changes the representation before your metaprogram gets to look at it. So that's a little bad. But I desugar this into a declaration followed by a second declaration that uses a thing called an extract on the first one. And so the problem is, so that works fine. I believe, something is making that work the first time for procedures that are not polymorphic, because the data came in from the parser and the value ignorance thing is set up. But when it gets copied, it's coming in through a different route, and it's only seeing, something is override. Maybe I can put in a hack tonight. So my choices are I can try a little bit to put in a hack to work around this, and then put on the to-do list to do the real solution later. Because I don't like this desugaring. I want to do it without the desugaring. But the alternative is to make the core data structures more complicated, which I don't necessarily like either. But this is a bug in the programming language and must be fixed, right? So let me try and figure out if I can. Let's look at where this gets set. So I can basically do the following. So right now, I can look at what this call's serial number is. It's this. I can break. So we have deterministic repeatable runs. So I'm going to run fresh. I'm going to break when this gets created, and then which will probably be in the middle of this copying of a polymorphic function, right? And then I want to know when its num return values received changes. So we're going to set a data breakpoint on that. All right. So here is the thing. So we're going to break when ask s is equal to that. Restart. The bug is, so if I took out the must, then the program would compile, right? So the thing that's buggy is the thing that tells must how many return values are actually received. And it's buggy because this desugaring situation is complicated. So now we're just waiting because we set a data breakpoint in this thing, which is one of the slowest places in the compiler to put a breakpoint. because every single syntax tree node that gets constructed goes through here. Maybe I should have put it in the copier somewhere, but I don't know. This is the easiest place to put it, so I'm just going to put it here, and I'll answer some questions until the data breakpoint gets, or until the, this is not the data breakpoint, this is the, well, it is. It's an expression breakpoint. Yeah, in general, so the thing is, desugaring, here's the dilemma that I have, is that historically, desugaring is considered a very powerful technique for language implementation, right? Is, you know, you design the kernel of your language, especially if you're a functional programming person or something, right? And then you define a bunch of your other constructs such that they desugar into the kernel, and that gives you implementation power, right? It means that you know, your core is simpler, ostensibly, right? And yet you can have you know, more customized user level features or whatever, right? Expressions. The thing is that if I desugar ever, then it changes the representation of the program that you're going to see when you browse the code from the metaprogram, right? And I guess that's not that different. Like Lisp had a lot of desugaring via macros, and so if you wrote your own macro, you probably saw the result after desugaring or something. I don't know how all that worked. So it's maybe a similar problem, but I feel like the right way to solve it is to just not desugar ever and do more like a semantic desugaring where, you know, you look at the expression later in the compiler and just call the things that you need to call as a composition of the other functionality, right? But leave the nodes the way they are. Or you desugar and you say, this is our internal nodes, but when we export, you know, tell them this other thing. And that gets complicated for other reasons. So I don't know. It's not so bad. I almost don't ever desugar now. It's just in that one case, I don't really know how to do it well. I mean, I can do it, but there's just performance implications. I don't know. Maybe there's just going to be an easy workaround. You know what? I'm going to... Because I know this comes from a copy. This is taking too damn long. Dear Visual Studio people, please optimize expression breakpoints. All right, so this is probably where it is. See, yeah, this is not, it didn't hit the breakpoint. What happened is, between the time I hit this and before I typed in the value, it hit it because the breakpoint didn't. Yeah. All right, but I'm going to disable this one, and I'm going to say I think it actually happens here. No, it doesn't. All right. Yeah, okay, the S is still the same. So it didn't happen there. I don't think it happens here. I don't think that's it. Oh, I need to find this. C, none, return, val. Whoops. Really? Really? We don't copy that value. Okay, I guess. Well, it better be one of those. Let's see. No, what? What? Okay, hold on. Let's set a breakpoint somewhere else. Let's do it in the type checker at this point. Why did I decide to support not receiving all the return values? Because I want to be able to do that. Okay. It's already set to 1. Okay, we're in the middle of inferring something. This had better be a lambda, I think, right? So that's a lambda. So let's cast that to lambda. Inspect. It's probably that procedure, right? It's find. Let's look at what line and file name we're on. Line number 47 of file name catalog. Yeah, okay, so it's this one. So it's a lambda and it was polymorphed. Yeah, so it's exactly the case that I thought. So that is not confusing. What I'm not sure about is how it got set to 1. What is it? Values received. Oh God, that's the default? Are you kidding? Okay, so in that case, the bug is very simple. I can't even believe. This is one of those things where you add new members to your thing and you forget. I basically just need to do this. This is just a macro that copies it. If I spell it correctly. All right, let's run the debug build because we didn't compile the release build yet. Okay, no, that worked because it now got onto the site. So that was 20 minutes of debugging for an obvious copy of the damn value. Yes, I have the best commit messages. I'm sure everybody loves my commit messages. All right. So now we're just, whoops, that's an old version of the binary. We're just moving on and hitting the other cases now. Am I sure table find returns 2 values? Yes, you must have missed that part of the stream. Can you ignore middle return values? I don't have a syntax for that yet. You would just define a dummy variable and not use it. Some people have suggested using underscore, like some languages do, and I just haven't done that. All right, let's go back to what we were doing. That was not the worst derail, honestly. All right, value found. Now let's fix, I don't understand. We said when we searched that this had a table find. Oh, it's a different hash table. So I've got this crappy hash table. Before we had polymorphism, I made this hash table. So this is going to get replaced, but you know the font system is using that one. So we're done for now. As long as we run, and we do. Oh wait. Some tag is not found. This is not, except the print isn't working. What? What? Where was that? That's in main. Oh, tag. I've been meaning ever since I removed check directives to add a linter to my compile time metaprogram that checks print arguments. Like I did that in one of the very first demos of the language, and that old method is deprecated, but the new method is way more powerful, and I just never bother. I would have caught that. Okay, well it works now. Anyway. Maybe that caused a code generation bug in some way. I'm a little nervous. I don't know why that was happening, but it's okay. Maybe use dash 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 for the unused vars. Maybe, yeah, that might be a little too much typing, but it would be a reuse of that symbol. Or we could change dash 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 to underscore in all cases, including assigning. Yeah, any of these things might work. Okay. So this is all good. Now, what do I want to do? When I create a guy entity, so let's look at entity guy has a bunch of stuff on him, and one of those things is a human animation state, which, I call this add animation to guy, and it basically, you know, finds all these animation pointers. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just edit this routine, and before we do that, let's test to make sure hot loading works. So the thing I was going to say is the first thing I'm going to do is just edit this routine, which gets the animation pointers and puts them on the guy, right? Now the issue with that is that that won't respond to hot loading. So we're going to need to put the pointers elsewhere, like possibly on the animation names struct. Which is only a temporary measure, because like I said, eventually, right now we only hard code these pointers because the state machine is hard coded, and there's a limited set of what these pointers can be, right? Later it's going to be totally soft coded, so to speak. So yeah. But you know, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna keep the functionality the same as we move it forward. So add animation to guy. Right. So all we're gonna do for now is look up the asset names. Now this is going to be a little bit weird because I only have one Okay, first things first, let's make sure hot loading works, and then we'll come back here, because I want to do that. So every time we load, we print, is that, yeah, that's here. So every time we reload this asset, we're going to print this. So what I want to do is I want to turn off the dumb hacks that the game is running. And I just want to make some edits to the file and make sure we keep seeing that print, right? So this is our console down here, right? So we loaded that file way back. So if I go edit the file, it's called warrior.animationNames. Like, I don't know, I am editing the file. It thinks that's a non-catalog asset change. Why? It's either because, well, there's two things. Either it's not recognizing the extension for some reason, but I don't think that's true. Yeah, so we don't put the dot before the extension. I'm just checking that. So it's that the hot loader thing isn't, that's weird. Non-catalog asset change. Why? Oh, because God, okay, I forgot this part. So for all right. So if I go over here and I go to warrior.animationNames, so I'm editing the file really. There we go. File warrior set to catalog animation names. Loading file for blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's all I wanted. Just to make sure that works. Great. So now we go back to here. And I'm going to have a kind of a weird hybrid case. Here. Let me just move this all out, first of all. Make sure that doesn't make us barf. Right? I mean, okay, so looking up not found animations is not barfing us. So that's good. Let me move this out. Like I said, all of this is going to be moved out of the engine eventually. So I kind of don't care that much about neatness. Like before, the reason you would put these in here is because it's like, hey, if we're not going to use it, don't use the temporary storage of constructing or allocating this string, right? But all that's out the window right now because we're just totally changing how it goes. Okay, can I still push? Yes, okay, that's good. So that still works. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, this is going to be total garbage right now. I'm going to say, oh, you know what, let's do this. So if, well, let's do this lookup. Let's say names is, what do we call it? Dumb hack. Names is let's just copy this. If names print found the names. Let's print that 10 times so that we see it for sure. Semicolon expected. Down here. Screw it. We don't care that there's extra spaces there. Okay, we found the names. That's great. So, if names, we're going to do one thing. Otherwise, we're going to do all the old things so that our old characters continue to work. Right? I'm going to copy this. Well, maybe we don't copy this. Yeah. Table find names dot table walking. Right? Active, inactive, dead. Pushing, pulling, active to inactive, inactive to active. All right, well, let's see what happens there. Well, apparently nothing. Turn value success is being ignored. Yes. Okay. That's a good point. Let's do this. Let's not make it polymorphic. Yeah. I mean, really, this is really stupid because this ought to be combined with this as well. Like, we should just be returning an animation pointer, but because I'm lifting this piece by piece, I'm not doing that yet. All right, so we're going to find it. We're going to say asset name found is table find table comma tag if found log print animation lookup unable to find asset tag for names. Oh God, let's not print that yet. We ideally would want to print which name set this is in, but I didn't pass that information to lookup. All right. So, see, in cases like this, it's just convenient if this is initialized. Maybe I would have an alternate method like table find returning null value or something, right? Okay, so down here, instead of calling table find, I'm going to say lookup. Oh, they didn't load. This is what happens when you don't load. Why didn't they load? The other character works? No, nobody works. Nobody works. That's, I guess, fascinating. What? Mesh name, whatever, walking name, whatever. What is going on? We're not even running this code? Why am I not seeing mesh name whatevers? What is going on? Add animation to warrior. Unable to find asset tag. Whoa, what? Ha ha. You know what I didn't do? Do you guys know what I didn't do? Do you want to know what I didn't do in all these things? I did not, and I hope somebody caught this, but I don't think anybody did. I didn't copy the strings, bro. So the reason this is a garbage string is because it got like freed on the heap and bad stuff happens and I haven't put in heap checking yet. So names catalog, right? When I do this, these strings are still pointing in the middle of this file data. So let's do that. Hey, look, he loads. The reason it worked before when we were looking up stuff in main and printing it out is because that was shortly after the block was freed and it didn't, get stomped over. If I'd had debug hooks in the heap, I might have cleared the heap to a known bytes and we would have seen that problem or whatever, but it's fine. It didn't cost more than like a minute of time. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of all the, get rid of dumb hack now. Dumb hack has outlived its usefulness. So, basically this is, oh, okay, well, the other character's broken. Because it says warrior for some reason, even though it's wizard. Oh God. We're returning the, what? Okay, so we have to debug that. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. Oh God, it's because I hard-coded warrior here. This should be mesh name, right? Okay. Okay, so we have warrior and he's using the new path, and we have wizard and he's using the old path. And then as we make files for the other characters, they can go on. So that's like about as much as I wanted to do tonight. There is some more that I can do. Like I can, was that the super new line one was up here. I can move the pointers out so that they're hot loadable. And then I could test that, for example, by like swapping. I could swap pushing with like idle or something. Right. Any questions about what's happened so far? Any questions? I'm going to warm up some tea and make a short break, because it'll keep me awake long enough to do the rest of this. The tea is not quite done yet. It's still boiling. I'll wait about 30 more seconds. now have a cup of Bengal spice because the spice must flow. Someone is asking, what's the concept of hot loading? Waiting for a system signal that the file has changed and reloading the data structure. Yes, that's exactly what it is. And the reason you do it in a good game engine is because in development, you want to change things around a lot, and you don't want people to have to restart the game to see their changes, right? You'd rather have the game just run, and yeah, because it can be a hassle, like waiting for the game to start up and getting to exactly the right place in the game and setting up the situation that you want to be happening. And it's better if it's just running on the screen and all that. So we try to hot load as many things as we can. Sometimes there are practical issues that sort of prevent you from hot loading certain things, but usually if you work hard, you can get around most of those issues. The kind of stuff that we're doing right now, there aren't very many issues. Searching for other questions. Good night, Maxwell Perlman. Saw you had a piano in your studio in the No Clip movie. What brand it is? The No Clip is not my studio. That was a random place that we occupied to do the interview because our old office was too small. We now have a new office that would have been big enough, but we were in the old office at that time. So the art that was in that place, no, that is not the kind of art that I really appreciate, for example. Yeah. You're failing to understand the reason that file helps the artists. Do they produce a set of animations for the same stance and try them out in engine? Well, you know, you might experiment with 2 or 3 or 4 different animations, and you might want to change the name around to retarget that without having to edit your whole file full of, you know, state transition stuff. Also, though, the other thing is these names are do not depend on the character, right? So the plan so far is to make, you know, one state machine for all the human characters, right? And that will have things like, oh, I'm walking, what happens? Or I'm active, what happens, right? And for the warrior, we map to these animations, but for some other character, we map to the other animations, right? So it's doing 2 things, really, for that reason. For that reason. Did I ever listen to Donald Fagen or Steely Dan? No. Do I do much hot loading with scriptable objects on the witness? What is a scriptable object? Is that a Unity thing or something? Are you seriously asking me about a Unity thing? Yeah, don't ask me about Unity things because I don't know anything about Unity things. Okay. So I want to go So I have 2 choices about how to make this hot loadable. 3 choices really, but one of them is super ugly. One of them is, instead of storing these animation pointers on all these guys, I could store the string name on all these guys. That has performance ramifications. I mean, I could make an intermediate asset. Oh God, no, that's no good. What I'm gonna do see, I could, when we load the names table, I could have the names table have a set of pointers to animations, and every time we hot load the names table, I could look up the animations, right? But I want to decouple these things because looking up the animations is a little bit heavyweight because it involves loading animations and stuff, and you don't want that happening at a random time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pointers on the names table, yes, but I'm going to have a flag on it that they're dirty. And every frame, if it's dirty, but then what happens the first frame? This is a weird problem. This is like having this kind of indirection and trying to do it in the least crazy way. It's interesting. It's interesting. Do I like the idea of hot loading code like Casey does in Handmade Hero? Yeah, we'll probably make that happen in this compiler at some point. It's just that got a lot to do. Got a lot to do, and I'm getting tired tonight. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of this old path, because once I start moving these pointers and stuff, if I'm going to have to maintain these two paths, that's going to be a pain in the butt. So the next step is I'm going to make data files for all the characters. And right now they're just going to be simple search and replaces on the warrior, but they'll diverge over time. Data animations, warrior.animation names. Okay, and I'm going to say thief.animation names. Replace warrior with thief. Boom. And then I'm going to go to wizard.animation. Whoops. Wizard.animation names. Replace thief with wizard. And then I'll go to priest.animation names. Whoops. Wizard priest, and then we'll go to druid animation names, and then what are the other ones? Moon man. Let me see. Who do I call? Whoops, not there. I want to search here. So to set up a guy, no, really? Oh God, is it in? Well, okay, let's do this. It's the actual names of the characters are like, they're in data in the level files now. They're not hard-coded in the code, which is good, but it means that I can't search for what all the characters are very easily. But I can, because I'm going to look for tree data. No, not animations. Just data, and we'll search in here for active, idle to inactive. Anyone who has this, oh no, that's new. Death idle, we'll search for death idle. Death idle. Oh, it's not called priest, it's called cleric. All right. Cleric animation names. Thief, bard, do I have bard? No. Bard, druid, warrior, wizard, trader, castaway. No. Okay. Except in the thief one, that's close enough. The whole point of these is that they'll be tweaked later. But I feel like there's one or two more characters. Really? Oh, not more forward, move forward. Move forward. Cleric, wizard, thief, bard, warrior, trader, castaway, moonman. All right. Thought there was a moonman. Okay. So, data animations. Delete my that was dangerous. Living dangerously. All right. Let's get rid of Carl. Okay. We've got animation names, and we said priest. All right. So now we go here. Well, let's just comment this out. So, okay, this guy still loads. That's good. This guy loads. Hey. Hey, all right. So if we don't find names, log print add animation to guy, unable to load animations for guy, and return. Okay, so this becomes our main thing, and this is gone. All right, it served its purpose, but it is now gone. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, now that we've oh, my Bengal spice is getting ready. So now that we've simplified that out, we now, by the time we get down to this part of the code, we have one of these names guys, which means that we can put the animation pointers on the guys. Now, there is a thing right now called human animation state that I showed you guys before. And you know, this is the thing that's going to eventually get migrated out from being hard-coded. And what I want to do now, though, is just migrate these pointers out. So I'm going to put those into a new thing called an animation table. And should I do a using here? I'm going to do a using here because that's a language feature, and let's do it. So for now, as my intermediate thing, so every, no, let's not call it animation table because that's confusing with the hash table. Let's call it a set. Using set, animation set. Animation set. All right. So this has an animation set by value. And it's going to just be a bunch of null pointers, right? And then back here, we're going to say s dot set equals pointer to names dot set, right? And then because we're using through this pointer, then we should be able to assign all this stuff. And everybody who uses those guys, because other people use the walking and stuff, we don't have to edit all that code right now. Do that in C++. Do that in C. Okay, real world example of stuff that we only ever did in the demos. I refactored all these pointers out to here, and now they're pointed at, and they're on a totally different data structure, but the usage code didn't have to change. Do that in C++. We can do it in D. Can't do it in C++. All right, that's good. That's good. So really, what we're going to do is we're going to say instead of doing all this every time we create a guy, we're going to say if, we're going to say ensure that the names are updated, right? And what that's going to do for now, at the beginning, it's just going to do this. Why isn't that in my cut buffer? Emacs, all right. So ensure updated is just going to say, using names.set so that we can just refer to all those, right? So for now, we're just going to assign it every time. Undeclared identifier walking name. Oh, never mind. Okay, I'm so tired. So yeah, these are all useless now. Right, I could have fixed those back when we factored out. All right, so now we're not using names yet. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all this s dot. And we're just going to do this. We're going to want to put a little bit of a wrapper around this because remember we have that animation called just dash. That means he doesn't have this one. So right now we're going to be looking up invalid animations for some guys, but whatever, we're just getting it working. Right? So anytime animation names gets dirty, we're going to call this ensure updated that pokes all the pointers on it, right? So first we get the name from the table. Let's just say table, and we'll replace this with the table, right? And let's put these, just make it a little neater. Make it a little neater. We don't care that much because this is all going to go away eventually. This is all temporary programming. Undeclared identifier lookup because it's way up here. All right. Does he still work? Yeah. All right. So now we're going to say if it's not dirty, return names.dirty equals false. Print names whatever was dirty re-pointering. Put new lines around that just to make it noticeable. Names name. Now we got to put the dirty. Dirty is true to start. Anytime we load it, which will also be true to start. Names dirty equals true. All right, so we see that names warrior was dirty repointering, right? So now we need to call ensure updated every frame. I mean, we'd prefer to do it. Yeah, we're just going to do something ugly where we iterate over the hash table. We could have a list, so every time we call, you know what, let's do this way. Let's do it this way. Whoa. I could make the animation catalog, let's do it this way. Instead of just being a type def of catalog, I'm going to make it a struct using base, right? So that should still work, hopefully. Oh, Rita. Catalog already has a base. So using catalog. Why didn't that work? Wait, how did I used to do it this way. Oh, maybe because I'm using the name catalog. It starts getting dangerous when you're using names multiple times, right? So catalog was already in our scope, and then, yeah. There's probably should be an error here about that I'm shadowing a struct argument with a procedure argument. An argument of this procedure is called catalog. Although, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that should be a warning. Seems like it would legitimately happen. All right, so now this is a thing. This is a thing. And every time I reload an asset, I'm going to add here, I'm going to say dirty assets. Got my dirty assets right? And I think I have an add unique, array add if unique. So every time I dirty this guy, catalog.dirty assets names. Okay, now update dirty clean dirty names. Names catalog. Every frame we call this and we say for dirty assets ensure updated. Ensure updated is in this file, so let's move it. Let's move it to here. Array reset dirty assets, and then we just got to call this every frame. So main loop. At the end of the frame, we tend to do one frame. At the end of the frame, we tend to do cleanup kind of stuff. Clean dirty names. Is that by? Oh, that's by value, yeah. So maybe that works. What did I do wrong? Remember, we've got these spammy errors because I'm a bad person. Undeclared identifier dirty assets. Oh, because I'm not using. That was it. All right, well, let's see if that works. I mean, God only knows if I did all that correctly at midnight. So if that worked, then first of all, we should see that cleaning a dirty thing if we edit it. So warrior hi sailor Hey, names warrior was dirty, repointering. So I should be able to say that walking is going to be the push animation. He's going to push all the time. All right? That didn't work. Oh, you know what? We're not clearing the hash table when we reload the asset. We are not clearing the hash table. That's at least one problem. All right, well, let me first at least, let me make sure that this works, that there's not some file format problem. That this works if I restart. Yeah, so he's pushing all the time when I walk now. So that's easy to spot. We'll know when that's working. If I change it back, now he should not be pushing. So now all we're trying to do is get that to work without us restarting the game. Now, names catalog. When we reload it, so we've got this table, and do I yet have a way of resetting the table? I don't. I don't. So let's do that. You don't have to do this KV stuff, but that's a thing I'm going to demo next time. All right. I'm just going to say allocated, no, count. We're going to leave it at the same. This reset keeps the current number of allocated slots if this clears occupancy. So count is 0, and comma 0. I'm just trying to do this. It's really 1 byte per thing, but you know, this will respond to the, if I change it from a bool to something else. Maybe that's all I have to do to reset the table. Maybe. So then when I reload the asset, I need to reset the table. Undeclared identifier count, because this ain't using, forgetting that. All right, maybe it'll work now. I don't know. That being the actual problem, that was certainly a bug, but who knows if that was the actual thing that wasn't. Oh, we crashed. Okay, well, our table reset clearly is not good enough. Let's look really fast before we try to whip out a bug debugger. I mean, this is a little scary. For occupancy mask. That's sort of the higher level way of doing it. I want to make a clear array. Do I not have? I want to make like a 0 array thing that just does this in a high and raw way. What's the difference between size of and runtime size? Runtime size is a field on a type info struct. which is the same number as on the size of. It's just in a different place, and that's like a runtime operation to sort of navigate that data structure, whereas size of like gives you the thing as a constant in your program, right? So it's faster. Yeah, I should have a clearer, yeah, good thing that you mentioned that. Occupancy mask.data shouldn't have the star. Oh, you're so correct. That was the bug, and that's why there should be a function for it. But let's see if it works this way. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes people on the stream catch your bugs. Okay, it reloaded without crashing. Hey, look, we're pushing. Wait, what? I commented out the pushing. Why is it? Wait, what? Well, it's still not really working. But I can put some stuff into the repointering. All right, so let's go back to the memset, since we know that's the problem. Oh yeah, that was in the table. Okay. So let's see if we can infer anything from the behavior here. I guess it's not changing still. Like whatever we have at startup, it is not changing. So it's probably something dumb at this point. It's probably something dumb, but I'm not sure what. I'm not sure what. Anyone have ideas? How hard would it be to do something like define lookup tag table, tag name equals lookup table tag? Is it? Well, there's no textual preprocessing in the language right now, but well, we have more features yet to come. But you can add your own preprocessor if you want, so you can do that. You could use the C preprocessor if you wanted to. I don't know why you would want to. Is it practical to iterate through the members of animation set and initialize them? I don't know. I don't understand that question. You have to at some point, right? Okay, when we repointering, I'm going to just print out what the table contains. Because either the table contains the wrong strings, or we're not updating the pointers correctly. Those are the only two things that can be happening. So let's first do this. Dump table Wow, And then, so for occupancy mask, let's call it mask. Okay, so I forgot to put the index here. Dump table. Oh. Let's make that not a pointer. Hash, it's not hash, it's hashes. Hashes. All right. So this is hard to read. Let's change the print format a little bit. Okay, so that looks all good. Pulling, active, pushing, right? These indices are kind of random because it's a hash table. So for fast lookup, you know, the indices are all over the place, as you would expect. Now, if I hot load, okay, first of all, if I don't do anything meaningful, do I come out with the same strings in the same slots or not? Let's check that. Looks like it, right? It's pulling, active, pushing, walking, dead, pulling, active, pushing, walking, dead. All right. So now pushing is warrior push, move forward 01. Or no, walking is the one that we want to change. So walking is warrior active, move forward 01. We change that to the push. It is. Okay, so the string is correct. The string is loading correctly. So somehow the pointer is not changing. Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking about that, that if it becomes a bool 1 that is buggy, but I think that maybe size of in that case, like the element type probably is still bool 1. So size of probably errors in that case or something. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure it's going to be a stealth bug, but it might be. Is there a way to do assembly inline or intrinsics yet? No. You did this all by yourself on the witness. Did what all by myself on the witness? The equivalent of what I'm doing right now does not exist in the witness because the witness doesn't have very much animation. I did write the animation system for the witness. It's not a particularly sophisticated animation system. It's not even that efficient. It's just like, you know, it was good enough to do what we needed to do. We don't have that much animated stuff in that game. In this game, we have more animated stuff, and we want better user control over it. So, yeah. All right, well, if the names are correct, which is good, then I guess we're somehow... I mean, I don't see how this could go wrong, but I guess it could. So print walking's asset name is, so now we're going, this walking is a pointer to an animation. So we're asking the animation what its name is. So if this is correct, then somehow we've got 2 copies of the pointer. I'm not sure how that would happen. Okay, Walking's asset name is warrior push move forward 01. Right, because, whoops, okay. So now we're on pushing because I saved it that way. So we want to be able to go to not pushing, the active move forward. Well, it claims that's the asset name. And he's still pushing. Why is he still pushing? What the hell? Is this now I'm starting to think, is this a compiler bug? Like with using names.set? Oh, names.set is by value. So this is going to be just a bunch of pointers, which is going to be kind of ugly, but we can see if the pointer value changes. Right, so walking is this 7C40. And now it's 76C0, but he's not pushing. Okay, this is, okay, so I have 2 hypotheses. One is it's a compiler bug having to do with using of an expression. Using expression by value. Oh, that's so what it is. That is so what it is. I'm going to need to do something about this. Oh, it's because, yeah. So I'm using this by value, which means it's making a local copy on the stack, because that's like the semantics of what this is. If I even say this, does that work? I don't know if that works. Okay, that didn't work. Wait, no, the pointer did change, right? I'm so tired. Hold on. Okay, the pointer here is BDC0, right? And in fact, okay, well, now it's C760. And to show that that's not a totally random thing, it should go back to BD60 here. Yeah, or BDC0, yes. And even if I do this, it should be BDC0 still, yes. Okay, that actually means it's not a using problem. Sorry, that was all just me being tired. It's that somehow, when we play the walking animation, we're not playing the right one. I wonder if I've got redundant name lookups somewhere. So the thing that navigates the state machine is here. Print animating guy s.walking is so I'm printing out the pointer value every time I animate him, and the name, we'll see what that says. Okay, that's no surprise. Active move forward, active move forward. It's not changing. This is all good. Now I'm going to go to this, change it to the push. Man, the amount of work I do to make hot loading happen. People better appreciate this. Okay, so now we've changed it to push. It's was B830, which matches this. Now it should be 12F0. It's not, it's still B830. Whoa, maybe I have a using bug. Okay, wait. What is going on? Yeah, I mean, it was changing. Like if I leave it with the wrong animation in and restart the game, then it'll work. All I'm trying to do is make it work without restarting the game. This is mysterious. Okay. So when I do this, let's see if the pointer in s.set matches. Okay. So ABE0, ABE0. That's all good. This is, you know, I gotta watch for compiler bugs because that's the kind of world I'm living in. So 4DF0, ABE0, ABE0. Where is it getting this other copy of the data? Well, we can go up one more level and say, okay, when we print this out, that pointer had better be equal to that pointer. So this pointer should never change. The whole point of a catalog asset is that you can keep the pointer around to it and the hot load like changes the contents of it, right? So this names.set is AFF0, and when I walk, that should also be AFF0. That's good. You can check the rest of the digits if you want. I wonder if we're somehow making a new catalog asset because we're not finding it. That would be crazy. Maybe that's happening. Maybe I'm newing a new catalog asset every time. Let's find out. That's the only explanation I have. That or serious compiler bug are the only explanations I have right now. So let's go back to this. And it's still AFF0. Wait, that's the, okay, that's the, no, that's old. Okay, it changed. It changed. That's not cool. That is not cool. That is not cool. Okay, so what's going on is we're like leaking the old asset and creating a new asset. right? And the only place that we make a new one here is here. All right, so this is kind of to be expected because we're loading one animations file per character, I guess, except, yeah, I guess we're instantiating that many characters because we're setting up a few levels, not all the levels in the game, but a few. But when I hot load, I do not want to see that message. And I think that I will see that message. Yeah. Why? Why? It's because it's not being found in the catalog. I think. So this is, we get into generics territory here. So catalog, perform reload or creation. What if value.name is not equal to short name? It should be. I'm pretty sure I just saw that. Make placeholder. Changing the animation to wizard pushing will not change the mesh. The mesh and the skeleton remain the same, so it won't make it more visible. I could change it to the dying animation. That'll be more visible. All right. So for some reason, we're not frickin' finding this. So here's what I'm going to do. This is the cool thing. I've never done this before, and I've thought about demoing this. I hope it works. Where's that table dumping? Dump table. Okay, watch this. Watch this. If t is equal to animation names catalog, do the following. Oh, frickin' Emacs indentation. Do the following. Dump table, well, print added to names table, dumping table, dump table, table. Print, what's eye-catching? No, not that. Can't do that. Let's see if that works. Incompatible specializations of table. Oh, I don't print. Why is that an incompatible specialization of table? I wish I was printing more error message and this would work. This should work, I think, unless I'm... Well, you know what? Screw it, because you know, whatever. We don't care. Using the table. Fuck it. I would have liked for that to work. I'm not quite sure why it doesn't. And that's an impetus on me to do better error messages when I do polymorphism. Okay. So, you know, every time we add one of these to this table, we've got all these things. So now, I don't want to add warrior again. If I do, the hash table should take things with multiple keys and, oh no, will it overwrite? I don't remember the behavior of this hash table. Well, we do not, okay, at least we know that warrior is in the table, so that's good. Like, that's good. Let's go back here. Delete these, save. Added warrior to names table, dumping table with nothing in it? Why is the names? What? What? It's like, am I resetting that table for what? Am I resetting the wrong thing? This is where I need a data breakpoint and a debugger to say where the hell is the table resetting. Didn't you set count to 0 when you're setting something? You mem set the occupancy. That's a different hash table that I mem set. Oh, wait. Okay, so here's the thing. Catalog itself has a table that maps from string to value type, and this value type is the asset, the animation names. That is a different table from this table, which maps from name to name, right? So in principle, oh God, I'm resetting the wrong table. Oh, this is funny. So I should have said reset names. This is what happens when you have too many things called table. I should have reset names table because that's the table in the animation's name. But when I debugged it, the table was reset. But the reason it was reset was because we were making a whole new names. So it had an empty table. So it looked like this was doing the right thing, but it was really doing the wrong thing. It was really resetting the wrong table. And that is the power of generics, everybody. You could shoot yourself in the foot even more than you thought. All right, so I'm walking. I bet it's just going to work now. We've debugged enough things that this should just work. That's my theory. Okay, warrior. Boom, boom. Yeah! Oh, look at that. Okay, let's change it to... Yeah. I'm playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and crawling across the... And then I can change it back. See, isn't that great? Isn't that great? It's almost like a game engine. It's almost like a game engine. Now let me take out all these prints. Prints and the revolution. I'm still not in the habit of like going into the debugger, mainly because it doesn't totally work consistently enough that I want to, but we're getting there. Where did I put all this stuff? Yeah. Wait, did I? Yeah. Let's see how many other print statements I spammed. None. Let's make sure it still works. If I do this, I think it'll take the second one. Oh no, we've got 2 entries in the hash table now. I should maybe detect that as an error, but we'll do that later. Do that later. Isn't that great? Okay, I'm going to get rid of that, re-pointering, get rid of that, get rid of the dump table. Get rid of this frickin' thing, all of that. But isn't that great that I can just say, if this generic happens to be this one type, do all this junk? That's great. I don't know why I couldn't call dump table. That's to be investigated. I maybe know why. No, I don't know why. I don't know why. That didn't work. It's probably something dumb that I'm not thinking of. Dump table. Where did I put dump table? Here's catalog. So we'll just keep that around. We're not going to keep compiling it, but we'll keep it around. That's great. Let's make sure the wizard still works. Yep, everything works. This is a little more than I had pessimistically hoped to do tonight, and that's good because I'm a little tired. So let's do Q&A on anything that happened tonight, or we'll entertain a little bit of off topic. Not too far off topic. Programming questions only, please. But they could be about any kind of programming. Let me turn on my fireplace. Where did I get the animations from? An animator is making the animations. From the outside, it seems to me that there are dangerous levels of nested usings and name collision. Well, maybe. So the thing is, I have this same problem in C++ often. Not even with usings, just with inheritance, which is the same thing, right? So like, a classic problem I have in C++ is like a base class has something called flags, and then a derived class also has flags, but different flags, and like I used the wrong flags field or something, right? Which I suppose that one can be gotten around with type checking in some cases. For this, I feel like maybe my habit should be that I name things more specifically, right? So like table is a very generic name. Maybe I shouldn't be calling so many things table. I don't know, but definitely what I want to do as I keep programming is like see if this kind of problem happens more, and if it does, then maybe we issue warnings in case, like maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to think of a case that wouldn't introduce a lot of false positives. I don't know. We just have to see if it's a problem, if it is, exactly what the problem is, and then what a good solution might be. Can we see what happens when all three walking lines are commented out? Well, I believe that you'll just get the T-pose, right? Because it's an unknown animation. Well, it's actually, but what happens is we try to play the animation and it's not found, so we stay in idle. We would be in the T-pose if we weren't already playing an animation. When the full system is done, of course, we'll log error messages and stuff when this happens. But right now, it's a little bit wasted work to do that because things aren't in the structure that they will finally be. Am I focused more on the game or the compiler? I go back and forth between which one I'm working on at any given time. Do I have ideas about how that debugging could have gone smoother? That was a pretty smooth debugging, because there were like several problems and I went through them all in a relatively small amount of time. I don't know if you've ever debugged software, but that was pretty good. I mean, I assume you have, because it's a question that a programmer would ask. I don't know. I mean, if you had like a very good debugger program, visualizer, lots of things go faster. If you're not tired because you're programming at midnight after working all day, lots of things go faster. So I don't know. But I didn't feel like that was a particularly slow debugging. I feel like that was okay. Of course, we would always like anything to go faster if we can. Yes, Gary Johansson is talking about macros and generics, and I think you'll like one of the upcoming demos. Not the next one, but later. Will the game have music? The game already has music, I just have it turned off. The wizard does not cast a shadow? Yes, he does. It's just under him. It's because of the camera angle. Look closely, and you see the wizard's shadow. Look, he casts shadow. Do I have an opinion on IntelliSense type editor functionality? Yes, I've talked about it many times in these streams. I'm not going to do it again. Sorry. If there was a fact, that would be in the fact. With the null value before, I was just wondering if all variables in the scope of a function basically get treated as if they were all declared at the top, meaning if they have any constructors initialization, it'll always happen. If it's flow of the function means you return early. Okay, I see. So what happens right now is the stack space for all the local variables gets allocated at once, because you don't want to keep spending instructions allocating stack if you go into subscopes or something, right? So the stack space gets allocated at once, but you don't execute the initialization code until you hit that line of code. So it's uninitialized until you get to it. And my impression is that that's how most compiled languages do it. Like, I don't think that's a radical approach. Like when I step through C++ in the debugger, for example, it looks like that same thing is happening. Why didn't I use a diff to find the print statements? Did I need to? It looked like what I did was faster than the diff. Like a multi-file diff across a whole project, including all the legit changes? Doesn't seem like it would be very fast. Is it okay to try to switch 75 hertz monitor to 60 hertz mode in case you want your game loop to run at 60 hertz? You could try it. I don't know. Would hot loading from a loaded animation to commented out do the same thing? Yeah, probably. So what's being asked is, let's go back to this level to keep things simple. So if I just do this now, yeah, because it doesn't know what to play. It just doesn't even have a thing. What draws me to puzzle games? I think puzzles are cool. How is the compile time compared to our last demonstration? It's about the same. So since then, we had to switch to actually a slower linker, unfortunately, because there's this whole like tool chain problem with the latest versions of Visual Studio. It's just like, if you use the recent linker, it puts horrible garbage dependencies into your executable, and then you can't run it without like Windows 10 redistributable crap. Like Microsoft has no respect for anything. Anyway, so if I compile now, well, the Visual Studio variables that I run now is I'm using the AMD 64 linker, which is a slightly different one, like for Windows 8.1 or whatever. And unfortunately, that one seems to be slower. So now when we compile, so our total compile time for the whole program is 0.6 seconds, of which, well, I mean, that fluctuates a little bit, right? But it's in that neighborhood. So 0.6 something, of which 0.36, so more than half the time is waiting for the linker, right? So the amount of time the compiler takes now is 0.635 minus 0.363, no, 636, 0.636 minus 0.363, which is 0.273 seconds. So our part of the compiler takes a little over a quarter of a second to compile this program. Now the program is bigger than what I demoed before, because so it's about the same size in terms of this report. It was like 52,000 at the reboot develop demo in Croatia or something. I forget the exact number, but several thousand lines of that code was actually commented out dummy code. So the game itself, so those lines have since been deleted, but then thousands of lines of legit code have been added, right? So it's about 10% more code. And we compile, our part of the compiler is 0.273 seconds, which I believe is faster than was demoed before. And the language has more features. And I use more features because I'm using polymorphism more heavily and stuff. So it's going pretty good, I have to say. I just, at some point we have to get rid of this linker dependency because it's really horrible. Is audio a bit low? Maybe. I think maybe the microphone is just far back because people were complaining about my mouse in previous streams. It's turned up to 100% in OBS. So I'm moving the microphone closer to me, but now when I move the mouse, everybody will complain. Opinion on unit testing, TDD, BDD. I think testing your software is very important, but I don't think so-called test-driven design is a good idea. I think that's a bad idea. But tests are good. I don't believe in unit tests, really, but I believe in tests. So, given the amount of work necessary to get hot loading to work correctly, could you talk about the thought process used to decide whether it pays off to implement and maintain such a system? Well, look, I mean, this whole thing all the functionality I did was like 3 hours, less than that, because there were breaks and we started Q&A a while ago. Like we started at 9:48 p.m. and it's 12:38 a.m. So it's like 2 hours and change to do all of it. The amount of time that it took to make hot loading work, I don't know, you could go back and watch the video, but it was certainly less than an hour of that. So like how long, if it takes a minute for people to get back into where they were, then it only takes 60 animation changes before that time is paid off if there's only one person doing them, right? I mean, that's going to happen in a day. So if it took an hour, and if the time is 1 minute, then like in less than a day, that time is already paid off, right? If there's multiple animators or they work for more than 1 day, even if the time is less than a minute, it pays off very quickly, right? If anyone else ever uses this engine, which we're going to give out the source of the engine, then the benefit is multiplied massively, right? So the answer to how quickly does this kind of work pay off is usually very quickly. Like if you think that was a lot of work, man, try game programming sometime. Things are usually a lot more work than that. You should make it print out that calculation so people can directly see how little time it takes to compile when they get to use it. Yeah, well, we do print it out right now. Like all this gets printed out. So like front end time is 0.23. We don't print exactly total time minus linker, but it's pretty close. Like total time is front end time plus this, right? That comes out to the 0.27 that we came up with. But the goal is to eventually get rid of this linking time so that total time will be this number approximately, with maybe a small amount of more overhead. So yeah, we'll get there. Do I plan on implementing some kind of BCD for when floating point would not meet certain requirements? I don't know about BCD, but like big nums, maybe. Like having a big num library is a no-brainer, but the big nums would be like signed 64-bit integers. They wouldn't be BCD numbers. That's ridiculous. Because you want them to be fast. You want them to be fast. Have I thought any more about using LLD? I mean, I've thought about it a little bit. The thing is, it might be a small amount of work to substitute LLD, but now that's a dependency that everyone who wants to use a compiler has to have installed, and that's annoying. Or we have to detect it or absence of it, and now there's a branching factor in what's going on. So then now if people are using the compiler and I have to work with them to nail down bugs, they could be using either linker, and it's like, right? Whereas if I put in the work to just end run around the linker and we don't use it at all, then all that goes away. So what I would prefer to do is start looking at not using a linker and see what happens with that. And if that starts to be a rat hole, maybe we do LLD as the near-term solution or something. Why did I choose a Sokoban game? There's a very good, this is going to be a really cool game, first of all. And secondly, because it's a sort of a top-down 3D view, it's less resource intensive than the Witness style 3D view. So the engine doesn't have to be as hardcore, right? Because I'm building a new engine for this, I don't want to work for years and years on it before I can give it to people, right? And release the game. So we're picking, you know, an easier 3D rendering task that doesn't require as much work. And then the bonus of that is then the engine itself will be less complicated so people can understand it better when they go and use it. Is there a YouTube channel that shows the beginning? Yeah, I have a ton of streams on YouTube. Maybe I should put the link. if I ever put anything in this page on Twitch, I should put that kind of thing. I'm working on a project where unit tests are mandatory. Could you go into more depth about why you do not believe in them? I should make a FAQ for this. Because, first of all, it's too much testing. Like, how much test code do you want to have to frickin' write? You know? And I guess there's the question, like, you can do unit tests and write, okay, no matter what tests you write, you need to write the tests after you write the code. This whole thing about TDD, about writing the tests before you write the code, is nonsense because you don't exactly know what you're building yet if you're doing anything interesting, so you can't write the tests yet. Right? You might, if you don't know where to start, you could maybe write one or two little tests as like, oh, this tells me what API I need to call and stuff, but that API is going to change and all sorts of things are going to happen. So you need to let that change occur. Otherwise, you're encouraging your code to rot very early, right? So write the tests first is complete nonsense, propagated by programmers who don't have enough experience and or who aren't that good at what they do, and or are slow and unproductive, right? Now, if you get into all this business of writing unit tests, for every unit, I mean, it depends on what you mean by unit tests. If you're going to try to diagnose every unit of your program and write a test for every unit, on the one hand, that's very thorough, which is good. On the other hand, you're multiplying your amount of code tremendously, which increases the cost of your project, right? So if you can test the thing not as a unit, for example, as an entire game, that might be a much more efficient way of testing in terms of the number of hours you put into programming, right? And maybe if a cryptic bug comes up in the middle of that, you could start writing individual unit tests to help you narrow down on the problem. But one of the things you find in complex systems like games is that bugs are not isolated to units usually. They happen in the more complicated parts of the code, which is where things come together and it's not really unitizable, right? So people who are really advocates of unit tests, I think, in many cases are not that productive, first of all, but also are not doing systems that are particularly complicated, in my opinion. Now you could, so if you're NASA or somebody, you probably test the hell out of things, right? But then software development is very expensive, right? So you look at some of these shops that say, oh, we do TDD and all that, and they're probably using horrible languages like JavaScript, which is why they need excessive testing in the first place. But then, you know, you look at the average output of those places, like how much functionality per engineer year do they implement? And it's very low. So then you have to ask, well, why are they so zealous about their development practices if their output is very weak? And the answer is because most people are not self-critical and reality-based. So, you know, whatever. I'm sure people are going to be angry at me when this shows up on YouTube, but that's what I think about all that. The other thing about tests is a lot of people advocate, well, you should compile all your tests and make sure they pass, like every time you compile your program. And that just slows down the compile, edit, debug cycle, right? Which makes you less productive as well. So all these things. That said, right, please don't take me out of context. Testing is very important, right? If you don't test your software, then your software doesn't work. What I'm saying is I don't think that this obsessive unit testing that happens in many cases is the right way to test. I think there are more efficient, better ways to test that capture more bugs, and you want to do those things. Does it regularly seem helpful to talk through programs yourself even when not streaming? No, not really. I mean, sometimes I do like think of what the hypotheses are for the bug, but I don't really verbalize it, and you know. The second half of your question. What was the second half of your question? Since 1 million lines per second is your goal, and that's probably over half an order of magnitude away, are there straightforward ways to do that you just haven't worried about yet? Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I haven't gotten picky about the data structures in the compiler. Like the syntax tree is using a lot of memory that it doesn't need to. That might help. That's not going to get 5x, but it might help some. And the other thing is most of the compiler is not threaded yet. The thing that takes the most time is the type checking phase. And that's also the hardest thing to thread, unfortunately. So I don't know if that's going to be threaded for the initial release. I would guess probably not. But that said, there are redundant computations that are happening in type checking that can be sped up. So I don't think for the initial release of the compiler that we're going to hit 1 million lines per second. But I hope that we'll be faster than we are now by, well, certainly without this link time, but hopefully we'll be faster than this 0.273, right? I mean, what is this? So 55612 divided by 0.273. So that's 200,000 lines of code per second. I would hope that by the initial release of the compiler that we get up to 300,000 or 400,000 lines per second, roughly, which is pretty good, you know. And then I think then we start getting into the land of serious but ultimately tractable optimization that'll get us up to 1 million. I don't think 1 million is unreasonable. I don't think 2 million is unreasonable. Especially if we can parallelize the type checking, then we will mostly scale with your number of cores, which would be very exciting, right? I mean, this number right now is a little bit of a cheat because it assumes that we can replace that link time with a zero time operation, which is not true, right? Hopefully it'll be close to epsilon, but it won't be 0. So maybe our current real number is under 203, right? But it's not that much under 203. I'm not going to talk about design right now, especially because I'm real tired. Someone says they think unit tests are great until fighting them to refactor stuff. This fighting can happen at most phases of development. Right, well that's one of the problems is, like the more code you have, the less agile you are, and unit tests add a great deal of code. And so changing things, it's like tar, right? It's keeping you stuck and keeping you from changing things. When I feel stumped about a problem, what tricks do I employ to unstump myself? I go do something else for a while, and then I just usually something relaxing, like a physical activity, and then the idea to unstump me usually shows up. Have I ever written my own C++ subset guide? No, I'm just not that interested these days in doing that. I mean, basically, you know, what people call C with classes is what I do. I use a very small amount of templates, like 2 in the entire, in my part of the code for the witness, there's probably 2 templates. And I only use single inheritance. That's very shallow. Am I going to release updates to the game engine as I work it on in the future? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. How much memory is the Sokoban game taking? I don't know. Let's find out. I mean, we don't have that many graphical assets and stuff, so Sokoban is 100 megabytes. So Ultra Search is using more than twice as much memory. Microsoft VS Hub Server HTTP host.exe is using more memory than this game that's drawing this very nice scene with this animated character. Anti-malware service executable. Creative Cloud 32-bit is using almost as much memory. God, software is so horrible right now. I mean, we actually have to load all these high-res bitmaps and stuff, like, people. You're looking at how to represent currency for financial calculations. You came across BCD. Wasn't sure the current state of the art. Yeah, I don't know if there's a reason people use BCD for that. It might be, you know, currency, like if you're doing banking applications, those are very serious applications, right? And so there will be a lot of pressure to use well-tested existing code. And that code might like date back to Fortran or something, where BCD was common. I don't know, I'm talking out my butt. I never programmed in Fortran or COBOL or anything, right? So it could be that those libraries were ported over from those languages or might still be in those languages and you link to them and that's why they're in BCD, right? Or it could be just that the algorithms were originally designed in BCD and because you wanted them to work on non-two's complement machines and so forth, right? And that they're just established and you can use it. It's easier to use them than to make a new thing and know it's completely bug-free. For banking, you really want to be conservative. That's my guess. I don't actually know. But if you want a general like arbitrary length number package, BCD is a slow way to do it. Right? You want to use numbers that are at your machine's word size. Is there still one other person working on the compiler? Yes, there is. Yeah, that's a good, pseudonym 73 brings up a good point, which is that good programmers throw a lot of code away. Completely true. TDD developers would also have to throw the corresponding unit tests away. Also true, right? And then write new tests for the new thing. It's like they eat a large constant factor on the volume of code that you have to write. Where in many cases, I've heard of shops that write 10 times as much test code as actual code. And these shops aren't like NASA. Like their end output of code isn't even that robust compared to what you would like, but they write 10 times as much in the way of tests. That's like a massive drain on productivity. It's horrible, right? It's like pair programming. Like whoever decided back in the extreme programming days or whatever, like, oh, pair programming is a good idea. Everybody should pair program. And it's like, okay, wait. You just right away, because two people are sitting there writing code and the keyboard is shared between them, you've divided their productivity at least by 2 and possibly more, right? Because they're talking a lot and arguing and whatnot, right? So somehow the claim has to be that pair programming gives you efficiency gains of greater than 2 and probably much greater than 2, right? And nobody ever tested that numerically. They were just like, oh, pair programming is a great idea. So yeah, this is the kind of people who tell you how to program, right? Like just nobody cares. They get these ideas and they're not empirically based ideas, right? So yeah, all these books telling you how to program do the same kind of thing where they say do thing X because it has benefits Y and Z, but they don't tell you about drawbacks A, B, and C, right? It's a cost-benefit analysis. Everything has benefits, everything has costs. You have to pay attention to the costs and take them seriously. The reason why programming has not advanced very much over the past many decades, despite the fact that all these new paradigms keep getting proposed, is that people don't pay attention to the costs because the costs are subtle, right? The benefits are obvious because the thing got proposed because of its benefits, and you'll hear about the benefits. The costs tend to be subtle and or swept under the rug by the people who want to sell you on the benefits. And so people don't see the costs, and then they invest heavily in these paradigms of doing things, and then 10 years later, they're like, oh, we're only 3% better at developing software, and we were supposed to be 50% better. What happened? Well, what happened was you didn't take costs seriously. So, yeah, that needs to be in the facts somewhere. I noticed you use some for loop macros in C++. Could you show us how they're implemented? No, I mean, I don't really like that macro. I just use it out of inertia now. I don't like it. How many hours can I code in a day before getting too exhausted? It depends. Like 8 hours is pretty easy. And that's 8 hours of actual programming at a regular speed. If I'm like redlining, like programming really fast, 8 hours is hard, but doable. I've done 14 hours a day before for weeks at a time. When I'm really motivated. And those are 14 hours of not goofing off, like programming fast. So that comes out to like, 98, is that right? 98 hours a week for all 7 days? Yeah. You know, so I've worked on rare occasions. I've programmed for up to 100 hours a week. But I don't do that very often. And it's only when I'm really happy about what I'm doing and really motivated to crank on it. And after I do that, if I do like a 90 plus hour week like that, or even an 80 plus hour week, that's not sustainable in the long term. Like my brain is tired and needs to rest. So then the next week is very light or something like that. I haven't done that, and if I haven't done, I would say that I have not done a more than a, I might have done like a 60-hour week when we shipped macOS Witness, but that was not particularly hard programming. 80 hours a week, I probably haven't done in 3 or 4 years. 90 hours a week, yeah, probably I haven't done since 2013, when I worked on a side project game that none of you guys have seen yet, that will be released someday because it's a cool game. Economics book is off topic. The meditation related thing I want to do soon. It's just, I've been working on programming tasks and I need to just plan out what that talk is going to be. So it'll happen, I would say within a month, hopefully within a couple weeks, but I need to like really figure it out. Yeah, I said 98 hours a week. Who came up with 200? Would I consider doing a pure game design stream sometime? Maybe. The thing is, I don't want to spoil games too hard. For this game, I probably won't do a pure game design stream. Maybe if we do an expansion pack for it. This is the kind of game that could have an expansion pack. So once the main game is out, that might be a fun thing to do. is just design the expansion pack and work through it. But that would be way later. Like, we're talking not this year, possibly not next year. Like, that would be in the future. How do you solve timing problems? For example, do X, wait 3 seconds, do Y, then do Z. I've seen visual languages solve them well. Coroutines seem reasonable, but much more error prone. That kind of a thing in games usually is a behavior on something in the world, like an entity, like this guy. It's not quite a timing problem. Oh, I broke the walk animation. Let's unbreak that. You know, like there's a timing thing about like when to play the footstep sounds, or you know, when to stop walking. And I mean, all that's, oh, that bug's still in here. So the music decoder eventually barfs. Even though the music is not audible, we're decoding it every frame. And I'm doing something wrong decoding the OGG or something. So I need to look into that. It's a bug that only fires on rare occasions. Now this bug has been in for like months. And yeah, I just haven't fixed it. Because it doesn't happen that often. What was I saying? I forget what I was saying. That's how tired I am. I don't know anything about blockchain technology. What was I saying? Someone remind me what I was saying. Oh, timing problems, coroutines. I mean, I just don't... Coroutines in game engines are usually for like simple scripts on objects. But the problem is when you program that way, then your objects are not going to react emergently to stimuli because your coroutine is on a very linear path. So I don't actually think it's a very good way to program for games because it's very brittle. Like coroutines are about, the nice thing about them is they look very simple because it's like, I'm not thinking about anything else, I just want to go. But in a game you want to think about other things. You know, you want to interrupt and divert and modify and interact with other stuff. And so, I mean, I think you kind of want that code to be in the frame somewhere. And I think that's even true outside of games, but people don't do it enough. Any idea on when you get to the private beta phase? There's a couple of big features I want to do, and then we'll be in private beta. Well, a couple big features, and then a serious debugging time, and then we'll be in private beta. I would say it's almost guaranteed that private beta happens in 2017. I mean, I won't completely guarantee that, but it seems very likely that private beta will happen before the end of the year. But who knows, I might get slow, I might work on the game more, it might take a few months more, we'll see. Yeah, private beta for the language, not the game. There is no sign up for the private beta. The very initial private beta will just be a small group of friends for some number of weeks until we verify that it's not completely busted, and then we'll branch out to more people after that. And I don't know, I don't know how to, I'm gonna solicit people who want to try it because I do want relatively serious people. So I have to figure out how we're gonna make that happen. The criteria is going to be just people who are going to seriously try it out and play with it. Preferably who have at least a little bit of programming experience because, you know, I don't want to teach people how to program. But aside from that, you know, I don't mind. All right, I'm gonna go. Thanks everyone for coming by. I think I'm gonna stream some more later on as I keep working on this animation system. This has been good progress for today. The next step is going to be now, the next step is going to be making these states less hard-coded, and that might start by keeping them in code and not in a data file yet, but like constructing them with functions that build a data structure. So that might be the next step. And then after that, we'll make a file that lets you specify and modify those. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Joshua already has it running on Linux, supposedly. Although, you know, compatibility in Linux is probably always a thing. Fuzzing would be great. Like if somebody wanted to write a fuzzer and or just, like we don't even have a thing that automatedly runs tests right now. Like I have all these old demos that I run as tests once in a while. But you know, we do want to do the thing where run them and compare the output versus what it should be and blah, blah, blah. And then the alternate thing of a fuzzer where it's like run the compiler and see if it crashes, or if it doesn't crash, check the output to see if it says internal compiler error. Like that would be super useful. Super useful. All right. Good night, everybody. Good night.